So, welcome back to part two of questioning skills with Study With Me. Before we start, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and hit on that notification button to get notified every time I post a video. So, without further ado, let's start with questioning skills part two. Before we move to part two of questioning skills, I would like to ask some questions which we have seen in part one. Try to answer these questions and see how much you have understood from part 1 of questioning skills. Why is it important to ask questions in the class? What is the need of questioning skills? Do you think we need to ask open ended questions or closed ended? What are open ended questions? What are closed ended questions? Try to give an example when you answer these questions. Which questioning type is best suggested in class? Is it open or closed, and why? What are the four C's of 21st century teaching? What is creative thinking? What happens in the process of creative thinking? Try answering all of these questions. In case you feel you are stuck in any of the questions, don't worry, I'll post the link in the description box for the part 1 of questioning skills. You can go revisit it and try to answer these questions, for you are the teacher and you need the best knowledge. So let's move to part 2 of the questioning skills. What is creative thinking skills? Creative thinking questions. Can that be asked in the class? Yes, of course. You can make your child develop their thinking skills by just posing some simple questions. And if you have noted, all of these questions begin with WH. What do you think would happen if? What do you think would happen if not? If you don't get this answer, what do you think would happen? What happens in such a situation or time? This can be applied when you give a case based question. What is the purpose of doing this? What is the purpose of doing this activity? What is the purpose of learning scientific inquiry? Is this idea appropriate? This can be asked as questions for the students. Try to pose the questions to the students. If you know, we have learned the pose, pause, and pounce technique. So when you ask such questions, is this idea appropriate? This will try the students to think for themselves. And that isn't it creative? Ask them, why is it good? Before we move on to communication in class, if you haven't subscribed yet, then go smash that subscription button. What is communication in class? Do you think that you, as a teacher, need your students to communicate in the class? Communication is the key for understanding. You cannot be a one way communicator in your class. When your students communicate in your class, it shows visible learning in your class. And what does it do? It shows progress. Without communication, your class becomes meaningless. But we as teachers want to make a meaningful class. So, how can you do it? Simple. Just ask questions. What are the simple ways to ask questions? Is something that we ask many times ourselves. The simplest question that you can ask to your students is just WH questions. What? why, when, where, and you should know how can also be added in your communication skills. If you know this is a wonderful taxonomy, a theoretical practice that we need to do according to Bloom's taxonomy. If you see in his theory of learning, it starts with the hierarchical level. The basic is the remembering, then going upward, it is understanding, and moving forward, it is the skill of application, analysis, evaluation, and creating that our students need to master. We will see all of these levels in the coming chap coming scenes of questioning skills. Remembering is a basic fact. It is something that all our students need to do. How do you know that your students have remembered what you have done? Remembering is nothing but just recalling the facts and basic concepts. Like, what are the main stages that happened in the scene? Who did you see in the picture? What happened when I added 2 plus 2? When did you see the sun rise? How many of them were there in the picture? So these are the simple basic questions which just makes your children recall the concepts that you have just taught them. So once the teacher asks the remembering type of questions and when your students answer it, you have a green signal there that your students have understood the concept that you have taught. Let's go to the understanding questions. Understanding is what do you know about the fact? Can you explain? Describe what happened. What does it mean? Give an example. Understanding helps the children explain the ideas or concept. You can ask, can you describe the purpose of learning? Describe what happened in the scene of Shakespeare. What does it mean? And then fill out your own question and tell them to give an example. If you think that your children are able to do this, then you answer these questions of part 2 of questioning skills. What is creative thinking skills? Can you name some creative questioning skills with an example? Name some ways of making class effective. What are remember type of questions and why do we need it in our class? Do we need understanding questions and why? You answer these questions and I'll see you in part 3 of questioning skills. Till then, stay tuned with me and study with me.